Okay, so we're back for chapter 6. Jam's decided to send Pet back that he can't possibly be right. And here we are. It was dark when Jam was walking home, but she hoped through the large patches of yellow streetlight on the sidewalk. Her hips, her steps soft and hopeful. She was going home to talk to Pet, explain that she'd been to Redemption's house and seen everything there was to see, explain that everything was fine and Pet could go home, wherever home was for it, on a strange world on the other side of a torn canvas. Afterward, the picture of her life would click back into the position she knew and recognized, smooth and pretty with no terrifying ripples. Jam slid her hands into her pockets and listened to the crickets hidden in the grass, her earphones floating unused around her neck. The fireflies were dancing dots of light in the dark patches, and the air was sweet. A voice interrupted her thoughts. "You're wrong, you know." Startled, Jam whipped her head around. Pet was walking next to her, smoke rising off it like an indifferent steam. Its arms hung along its sides. It moved soundlessly, relaxed, as if it wasn't strolling out in the open in the middle of Lucille. Jam glanced at the houses that lined the street, but Pet chuckled, the sound only heard in their heads. "Don't worry, little girl. I am unseen. Only they can only see you, the one they know to see." It tilted his head and made a small humming sound. "Although perhaps you will come to see a little unseen, since you see unseen things now, especially after you see more of them." Jam's shoulders relaxed and she ignored the second part of what had been said. "So you're basically invisible?" Pet shrugged. She wondered if it had picked that up in its short time here. "You can see me," it said. "I am unseen and visible." Jam nodded and tried not to look too much like she was staring into the empty air beside her. They walked for a few minutes before she remembered its first words. "Wait," she said, "what do you mean I'm wrong?" The creature rolled its head around its neck. "You were not right," it answered. "You think that you were right, but you were missing things, and you were wrong." Jam folded his arms across her chest, feeling prickly. She was talking about Redemption's house. "You don't know them the way that I do," she said. Oops, sorry. Pet swiveled its empty face, and a streetlight shone harshly off the middle feathers before sliding away. "That's precisely the point, little girl. You knowing you think gives you clarity, sight that pierces. It can be a cloud, a thing that obscures." Jam frowned and Pet rolled its neck again, ruffling its fur. "Some things you know are not true," it said. "You have to learn that things might not be real, even if they look familiar." "You think I'm not seeing something in Redemption's house?" Pet stopped walking. "I am not a mistake, little girl." Jam stopped as well and dropped her head, embarrassed. She wanted to deny that that was exactly what she'd been thinking, but she couldn't. Her voice was gentle. Pet's voice was gentle anyway. "It's hard to look at things differently. I know." Jam started walking again, trying not to look too upset. Pet kept up with her easily, a stride swallowing up her small steps. "It would be easier if nothing had changed," it continued. If everything was still pretty and safe, yes? Like this little town your angels have made, a pool of water with the moon reflecting in it. Who would want to throw a stone and break the picture? It's fine to be afraid. It's fine to have fear, to not want to cross a fine line." Jam flinched and curled her hands into fists, burying them deeper into her pockets. "I am not afraid," she hissed. She didn't want to be called that. Afraid meant being closed and not brave, hiding and not looking. "I looked," she said. "I just didn't find anything. That's different." She tucked her elbows against her, pressing her arms against her ribs, making herself a tight line. "Did you find nothing because there was nothing, or because you didn't want to find anything?" Pet asked, its quiet bulk moving beside her. It didn't fit on the pavement, so it walked on the road instead, passing through parked cars as if it was spun out of nothing but nightmare and imagination. "Don't tell me what I wanted," Jam snapped. "Is there a want in what I do not Is there a want in you I do not see?" Pet replied. "A want to find a monster, to think something bad could be happening to your friend?" "I don't want anything to be happening to Redemption," Jam said, pushing away tears before they could fall. "I don't think there's anything terrible about that." Pet stepped in front of her, dropping a knee to the pavement. It became roughly her height, other than the dark red horns rising in the shine of the streetlight, and smoke wafted out of its mouth, smelling like ash. Listen to me, little girl, it said. You want many things. You are full of want, carved of it, made from it, yes, but truth does not care about what you want. The truth is what it is. It's not moved by want. It is not a blade of grass to be bent by the wind of your hopes and desires. Pet put its hands on her shoulders, leaning its layered face close to hers. The truth does not change whether it is seen or unseen. It is whispered in her mind. It whispered in her mind. A thing that is happening happens whether you look at it or not. And yes, maybe it's easier not to look. Maybe it's easier to say because you do not see it, it is not happening. Maybe you can pull the stone out of the pool and put the moon back together. Jam was crying quietly now. She could feel both the path Pet words were taking and the way her fear was trying to cover it up with thick briars of denial. I wanted it to stop, all of it, but Pet kept talking, its voice like many hands dragging over an infinite drum skin, creating a thrum that crept under her skin. What if you didn't think about what you wanted, what you hoped? Pet asked. What if your thought about this was, what if your thought about what it was happening instead? How does that change your wants? Jam pressed her hands to her face and tried to calm the trembling inside her. Pet's bulk was casting a black shadow over her, but it felt almost safe, like a shield. She tried to follow its instructions, think about what was actually happening, but she hit a snag almost immediately. I don't have any proof, she said, dropping her hands. You're the only one saying that anything's happening. Pet's face gleamed in front of her. I am the only one saying so, it agreed. But I came across realms to do my job. You can choose to believe me or not to believe me. The truth does not care. The thing that is happening will happen whether you believe me or not. Jam stared into its smoke-filled mouth and thought again. This time, the memories of Redemption's laughter filled house fresh in her mind. If she was wrong, if her sight was wrong, if she acted on it and sent Pet away, then she would be turning her back on whatever hurt or could be happening there, whatever help she could give. Pet moved its head, and the smoke angled newly. Do you want to take that risk? It asked, its voice small inside her skull. Jam bit her lip. Pet was right, but even if it was wrong, she couldn't take the chance. She wasn't sure how to hold the picture of Redemption's house and the family inside along it with the things that Pet was saying. It felt like one should push out the other entirely, like both couldn't be real together. Jam wasn't sure what to do about it, but it was clear she couldn't afford to throw the possibility away without even trying. It's not that I believe you, she said after a long pause. I still don't see what could be wrong in the house, but I also don't not believe you. Jam took a breath. If there's something else happening, which I'm not sure there is, then I want to find out, she said. Okay? Pet released her shoulders and stood, moving back to her side as they began to walk home again. Okay, it said. After she got home and Pet faded away, Jam pulled out her tablet and laid it on her bed, tapping the screen to wake it up. Call Redemption, she said in a low voice. The tablet beeped once. The line started ringing. Jam folded her legs on her egg blue duvet and waited for Redemption to pick up. It took a few rings before the video call connected and Redemption's face appeared on her lower screen. His hair and skin were damp. He was drying himself with a towel. Sorry, I was just getting out of the shower, he said, his face stretching into an easy smile. How are you feeling? I'm good, she signed, leaning the tablet up on its kickstand. You? Chillin'? He said it. He pulled on a t-shirt and sat down, angling a screen for her better. Thanks for coming over today. I know it was a lot of people. I was worried you'd be flooded. Jam shrugged. I wanted to show you something, she said. His eyes lit up. Oh, dope. Jam slid her legs off the bed, taking the tablet with her over to the desk. The heavy library books were there, lying open to the pages with the terrible pictures. They had been there since the night she brought them home. After Pet arrived, Jam had flipped through the pages, wondering if there was anything in there that looked like it. but there hadn't been, which made sense, since Bitter had spun Pet out of nothing after all. Jam flipped the camera to show Redemption the illustrations. Whoa, he said, those are wild. Can you zoom in a little? She held the tablet closer, scanning it over the pages, mouth-filled wings occupying the screen. Those are angels? Jam reversed the camera back to her face and nodded, setting the tablet down on the desk. Yo, but they look like straight up monsters, though. That's what I said, she answered, flopping into a chair. Bitter said monsters don't look like anything. Monsters got to look like something, he said. How else would we know what they were? They're all gone. Jam didn't quite believe the line, but she'd been taught that all her life. Okay, fine, Redemption continued, but monsters must have looked like something at some point. The angels had to identify them, right? Some things must have been obvious. Well, like if someone's hurting other people all the time, maybe it's not how people look. Maybe it's what they do. Redemption nodded. Makes sense. An easy silence fell, and Jam wondered what to do next. Could she ask him if someone was hurting him, doing things that didn't feel right? How was she supposed to look for unseen things Pet kept talking about? It wasn't her house. It wasn't if she could listen to the floorboards talk and trace secrets. If she could find the things that lay behind the voices when the grown-ups were talking, hunt without moving, just with her hand pressed to the floor. I wonder what the criteria were, Redemption said. Whose, Jam asked. The angels, when they were hunting. The skin skittered at the use of the word. Pet's word. But Redemption was right. The work was hunting. Jan was trying to imagine Lucille's angels as hunters, remembering how Bitter had told her how they had to do dark things, hard things. Now they were kindly adults who appeared on TV and came to schools to give talks. Everyone revered them a little, but no one thought of them as scary. Not really. The revolution had ended. There was nothing to scare them anymore. Maybe they'd been scary during the revolution, though, if they'd been like Pet, ripe with that righteous boiling fire. Jam knew Pet tried not to let her see that fire, so it wouldn't scare her, even though she wasn't his target. Did you have to be scary in order to be a hunter? Pet had called her a hunter too, but Jam didn't feel like she was the kind of power to make anyone afraid. She was just a regular kid, not some painted-to-life creature whose entire purpose was literally to catch monsters. She didn't want to fight or be in a new revolution. She was just trying to help her friend because he was in danger. Once they could get Redemption out and safe, Jam was perfectly fine with running far away from the monster as possible. That wasn't what a hunter did, and it wouldn't be what the angels would do. But Jam didn't want to be an angel. She just wanted to be herself. And the self she was before Pet showed up was starting making her look for unseen and unknown things. So the obvious monster would have been police, like the police and billionaires, Redemption was saying. But the angels must have figured out how to find ones that weren't so obvious. Her curiosity was giving her an idea. What about the library? Redemption laughed. You want us to go see Ube, do ya? Jam blushed. Shut up. Just saying, it's like your favorite place. I'm going to hang up on you, Jam threatened, laughing. She did love the library, partly because she loved the books, but also because it was nice to talk to Ube. He'd known Jam since she was a kid, and she came to him often with questions. He'd always answer them, tell her stories attached to the answer, pull out books and send them home with some. He would always be Jam's favorite part of the day. Okay, fine, Redemption grinned, backing off. We'll go tomorrow and ask your boyfriend. Jam made a face at him, hiding the relief she felt in her stomach, heavy on the lining. If they looked up criteria, it would be like getting a guide on how to find a hidden monster. She might not even have to convince Redemption because he might be right there looking with her, so he'd know how to recognize a monster. He might even tell her everything right away, and then she'd be able to tell Pet, and they could figure out what to do next. Jam was still scared, but the library would have some answers. It always did. It would help them know what was unknown. Jam smiled at Redemption. Thanks, she signed. Redemption shrugged. All knowledge is good knowledge. See you tomorrow. Jam turned off her tablet after she hung up, then burrowed under her covers and took some deep breaths. She expanded her stomach like a balloon on the inhale and imagined stress leaving from the crown of her head on the exhale. Pet interrupted her by appearing slowly, a heaviness displacing air. Well done, little girl, it said in her head. Jam growled and reached an arm out for her covers, grabbing a pillow and throwing it as hard as she could in its direction. Go away. She thought she heard Pet chuckle softly before it obliged her by fading into emptiness, leaving a tang of pride in the air behind it. Okay, so we have a new way of going about this. So we will meet for the next chapter. Okay, let's get to the off. Have a good night.